guys, this is Master of Flowers. This is going to be a response video to your method for NPC creation. This is by Eric. His YouTube channel is eweave20. That's eweave20. He calls his channel Gelatinous Tube, which is an absolutely awesome name. If you haven't checked out his channel, definitely get over there and check it out and sub to him, as he's putting out some good videos. So NPCs, and you did specify in your vid that you are looking for what we do for key NPCs. Now, I usually differentiate my key NPCs by, is it an NPC, a repeatable NPC, or an NPC that's a one-shot NPC? So if it's a one-shot NPC, maybe the players have done a great quest and they're going to see the king, and I only think that they're going to see the king once. Well, I'm going to do a lot of detail and really get into what that character's development and what he says and stuff, but he is only a one-time repeater. He's not a repeater, so I'm just going to do the bare minimum to make him stand out and be cool, but I'm not going to worry too much on his background, his personality, what he, what kind of weapons he carries, unless they're going to try to murder him. But if it's a repeatable NPC, or maybe an NPC follower that follows the characters, or is that person where he's the one who stays at the tavern and collects the players' mail and cleans their room, and he's always there, almost like a butler or something. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to give a really good description of that character when they first meet them, and as time goes on, I'll give them less descriptions and only point out the things that have changed with the NPC as far as describing them. When I'm creating them, I write down, because I make sure the picture in my head is so vivid, I don't really write down a lot of information about like what they're wearing or anything like that. I kind of have that picture in my head already, and I've already started formulating some sort of personality for them, which in turn has already created somewhat of a voice. So it's hard for me. It's not. I wish there was like a pattern, like I start with A, then I go to B, and then I go to C, and I could like give you this information, and it would just be how, an analytical linear line of how to create a key NPC. And for me, it's just not a linear line. It's like many creative things. It's A to E to B to C down to Z. X. So I'm kind of all over the place when I'm creating this NPC. And I've actually created the NPC and written him down and then changed him as the game was progressing, because my players were acting or doing things in a certain way, and I didn't think that the character I created would gel with them. So I guess in some ways, from my point of view, what I'm thinking is, how do I create an NPC, a key NPC, and that's, I create them adaptable. I make sure that, that I can change and morph them into what I want. Basically, I've been doing it a long time, so I have a bunch of personalities running around in my head. I think one thing I can give you that has really helped me out, and I'm really poor at remembering names, whether I create the name or it's your name or someone else's name I've just met. God, I've done all the tricks where they say, just say the person's name over and over again. No, I still have trouble remembering the person's name. I'll remember that they mentioned in a conversation 5 years ago that their dog's name is Skippy, but I can't remember the person's name for the life of me. So what I do is I write down the key NPCs names. I write down a bunch of NPC names. The ones that need description, or they have special gear or items or something that really sticks out, I write down. If they have negatives in their past and history, which the players may come to or ask about, I write that down as well. And then next to that, I have a long list, usually about 20 names of the regional names. Say I'm using like a Scandinavian named village. Everyone in that village pretty much has Scandinavian type names. I'll go look up Scandinavian names and write them all down, so that I don't have like say they're in a Spanish town, or I don't have a bunch of Juan, Jose, Ana Maria, and then I throw in a Bob. That doesn't it doesn't really fit. I mean, I guess it could if the person was a traveler, but if I'm just making it just one of the people that live there for a while, I try to keep all the same name types. It seems to make it like a micro society. It kind of gels everything together. So I keep all those names handy, and I think that's a cool way of dealing with my NPCs. And by having them separate from my notes that I might have, it's a handy list and it's right there. That's something that's helped me quite a bit with NPCs. Personalities. Lately, I've been just to give myself to help me is to just for fun, because you kind of get tired of doing the same NPCs. So I think everyone is always grasping for a new type of player, a new NPC to play as a DM. Especially if you've been DMing for a long time, you're like, oh, I've done this guy, I've done the upset dwarf or the gruff dwarf. I want to play a dwarf who loves dancing around and collecting flowers. So you tend to start doing crazy stuff, but I think for me, I've been using vices and using the deadly sins. I when it doesn't matter what the NPC is, I just give them one of the deadly sins. I just give them, if they see a paladin walking across the street and they're interacting with that NPC, I give them, I'll give him greed. I'll just decide that he is greed, and I'll play him as a greedy, lawful good paladin. And at first you're not really thinking that would work, but there are ways for him to be greedy, and it's giving me something to do. It's basically, for me, it's an exercise. I'm able to role play, and my players, it doesn't really matter whether my players know that I'm using that very simple premise behind my personality for the paladin, but it does give me practice and lets me continue to sharpen the edge of my skill, let's say. So I think, besides description, writing some basic knowledge down, which I pretty much always, when I'm playing D&D, is I always allow adaptability to in my game, as I found I've never been able to completely plan for everything my players do. So leaving something there to be able to change it to counter something that they do is important, I think. It's also, I don't write a lot of dialogue for my characters, NPC or not. I tend to just kind of make it up as I go, unless it's something important, like if a king is going to give a huge speech before the whole kingdom. Obviously I'm going to write that down and try to make it sound as kingly as possible. But normally I try not to write too much dialogue down, as I think that you never really know what the player is going to ask or say, so it's kind of hard to guess at how you're going to do responses. So you really kind of have to freeform that. What I do write down, though, is I tend to write down like if it's an NPC, a key NPC that might engage in battle, I write down a battle cry for them. And I also give them a reference, which I think kind of brings out my NPCs. I give them a reference to something in their past where they tend to perhaps maybe they say something like, "Oh, my uncle Rory used to say this," or "My uncle Rory used to do that," and I put that in their basic conversation. So when the players are having a conversation with that NPC, you kind of go back to that, as people tend to have certain patterns. Like I say a lot when I'm doing these videos. That's a pattern I have. I tend to, clear my throat a lot. So basically what I do is I, take what I do, the negatives that I do, and I kind of put them, try to put them aside and put different negatives or word usage into the NPCs to make them stand out slightly from all the others. So, alright, Eric, I think I'm going to end it here. Keep doing your videos, man. You're doing a great job. I hope there was something in all this 10 minutes of rambling, blurting that you found even remotely useful. If not, at least you just I got to do your first video response. So take care and keep on gaming.